organizational chart. We have this year 582 people that are teachers, and that also includes those that are on a maternity leave, some sort of a leave. But our people who would call themselves Southeast Cornerstone teachers are 582 of them this year, and we have 689 support staff. So both of those are up from years past. We were at 563, so we got 19 more people that are teachers, and we got 41 more support staff this current school year. So that's an increase of people to work in and support those 35 schools and facilities. Just some what the contract types turn into when we talk about those people. Some of them are percentage. They have a 60% teaching contract or a 40 or whatever that might be. This is what that equates to as far as percentage contracts for our teachers. In those teachers, we have our response to intervention, which we have a formula for K to 8, and then 9 to 12, a little bit different formula, but that equates to a very similar number to that we had last year, about 32.41. I think we were at 32.93 last year. So that could be more students in the upper ends where we only give a 1 to 200 ratio versus a 1 to 300 ratio. And we do our enrollment, we are a little bit down, but we still ended up with more based on the additions to the budget, and that we did end up with more staff, but we're right in that ballpark last year. A little bit higher on our learning support teachers. We put back in the additional supports for identified schools. So that's, we're just a little bit higher than last year. And from 0 to 24, we are way higher based on the provincial collective bargaining agreement, saying that if your school has 150 students or more, you will get one person, one full-time complexity teacher, or if you have 75 to 149 students in your school, you would get a half-time. So overall, for our 35 schools, we added 24 full-time equivalent teachers. Some of those are full-time, some of those are half-time. 5 schools do not have one based on the criteria, but I believe, if I look back, all of those are supported with small school factor funding. So that's how our educational staffing breaks out. Our educational assistants at 272, we are 42 people higher, and that math actually works out very close to, we added a half-time educational assistant for every school that has a kindergarten program. We started there, and that was based on Article 17 of the collective bargaining agreement, where it says there is an additional pot of money that school divisions can work with their teachers, and we worked with the Teachers Association, Whitney and Janet, to determine how we could support schools. We made the decision in those conversations to add what ended up being 21 positions. Some of those are half-time, so this sort of shakes out. We also have some identified needs that we added more support staff in. Also, that led to that increase. The remainder of our numbers are within 2, almost across the board. Some of that will have to do with, we had a portion here and they maybe changed to a full-time. They were maybe an AA and they changed to a EA. We get a little bit of fluctuation there, but for the most part, we're very similar. We have a counselor, one less counselor. We have a position to be filled and will be shortly. So that's not, those numbers are very concerning, I would say. When we look at recruitment of key positions, very similar to what I've had in the past. I took off small rural school teachers. Because the reality is we have a challenge to find teachers for all locations. We actually have some people who want to go to small rural schools. I think teachers in general is what we are struggling to hire. So I didn't want to just by location. Of course, that's a challenge, but we now are seeing almost all locations being a challenge. We've got some of our specialized teaching positions. Those will always be a problem. We're actually in a pretty good spot with our bus drivers right now. We got a few routes down. Complexity teachers, we have just recently filled our last one. Oxbow was the last school to fill, but they now have that position filled as well. But there's always a priority to fill all positions, but some are more challenging.
We had a higher than average recruitment process this year. How are you feeling about the orientation of those new teachers to our system? How does that seem to be going?
I think it's going quite well. There are individual cases where there are some challenges. We did, I don't know if it was shared, we did have one employee that resigned recently based on life circumstance. And it was a challenge, he was driving from a distance, he chose to walk away. So we have had that, that's the extreme case, right? We've got our coaches in place. If the administration is supporting the new teacher or all employees, the new teacher, and there's some identified need, we've got our coaches that are coming in and working with them and saying, what can I help you with? How can we support and get better? So I am feeling pretty good about it, but we've also had that extreme circumstance where somebody recently walked away.
Yeah, just one.
We've got 2 or 3 for 9% start of the year.
So we had 2 in one day. That gentleman that I referenced, and then another teacher that also had some life circumstance ended up moving back to Ontario. So I don't think there was anything that we did with our orientation that made that happen, but that, yes, we've had, it was a dark Friday a couple of weeks ago.
This is Black Friday.
That's not black. Agreements. We had a meeting this morning. We're preparing for negotiations with today it's SECPSD, but we're also going to be negotiating with QP shortly. That will be coming up here in the new year. The link agreement is in place until 27, and our out of scope handbook is still valid. It hasn't been reviewed for a few years, but probably will be shortly. When we look at risk management, legal actions are always a risk. We have been accessing legal support to ensure we don't get into those situations. We're probably accessing that more than I'd like to be, but that's how it's going. No grievances at this time. Left a collective bargaining agreement on there. We are now into the implementation of the latest agreement, but bargaining is going to start again soon. And we attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago with the ministry to say, hey, like, where do we want to go with this? So that's already happening. And so there's some risk of there not being an agreement again, and that could create its own challenges. SEIU and QP negotiations, as mentioned, and then we've got our ongoing project of recruitment of key positions. The risk is not being able to fill all those. But when we reported to, I don't remember exactly who we sent that to, but how many complexity teachers we had filled, the response was, oh, you guys are doing pretty well. You go to the provincial meetings and you hear the same thing. Oh, you filled all of them, really. So that's, I don't think, the norm. I don't have any exact data to, it's just those conversations that we have had.
Part of that was allowing us to get out ahead of that before other people were hiring. So again, once again, thank you for that. It put us in a better position than we might have been otherwise.
Absolutely. No, that's
Yeah, we take full credit.
If you don't let us go move forward on that, we're in the same position everybody else is. I think we snagged a bunch of people before other divisions were able to because they were not able to move forward on that. So
we really did, and we had I probably told us before, we had a neighboring school division who did not act quickly, and we had an intern who told me, I'm going to teach in Moose Jaw next year. she calls it, you got anything left? Yep. She's in, oh my goodness, one of our rural schools up that way, in Radnor. Exactly. That's exactly where she is.
Do you guys get the sense that the provincial government is preparing a little bit more this year than in the past round?
Strategizing.
Like, are they taking that, because we've spoken at MLA meetings, we've spoken at conferences, we've talked to them about really beefing up their approach. Do you have any sense that they're doing that?
There's been, I think, a little more gathering of feedback prior to this round of negotiations, perhaps. But from an actual perspective of who's going to be sitting at that table, I don't know if anything has changed from what the previous process. I don't know from an HR lens, Nathan, conversations you've had with your people.
I think they want a better understanding of being prepared going in, but I don't know if that's what that will equate to. I appreciated attending that meeting a couple of weeks ago to say,
Once we get, I hope once they get to the table, they recognize that there's things that government should not be involved with, as far as the ministers and so on. Because that needs to be done. And hopefully the bargaining will be a lot better than the last one.
I think the big point was try to lean on some directors and HR personnel provincially to go, what would this look like if?
Exactly. So that's what they used to do. That's what they used to
I
do.
think it would be welcomed if it did happen again.
Yeah.
As far as projects, I listed here, we have two people on our transition to retirement. So they've notified us already. They're on a temporary contract since the start of this year. So we congratulate Dan Manning and Darcy Howell that will be moving on after this school year. So we will have two holes for sure in our administrative group to fill. Just mentioned here the January evening, we had about 48 people, I think, attend. Is administration for you? We had highlights from 5 of our administrators that put on a presentation of this is sort of what you need to expect, and that was very well received. So I don't think it's an annual event, but we're hoping to put that on next year also.
We have a number of those people actually that came to that, they're now administrators.
Nope, absolutely. It was benefit, and maybe they would have anyways, but I think it was a good informational evening. Yeah, I am, So I don't have the numbers here. I did actually run them. How many of those that attended applied for jobs and how many successfully became administrators? I don't remember that. I should have had that up in my presentation, but that it was beneficial, or we believe so anyway.
I spoke to one person who said they went to that and it was very interesting and they'll never go into administration.
Which is also the benefit of having it, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's not a bad thing.
I'm hopeful to hear that a little
Yeah.
bit. Never.
They said, no, it's not my cup of tea. If you don't like meetings, don't go into administration.
We had one gentleman who had shown some interest, came to that, applied for one job, and I just spoke to him recently about applying again. He said, "Oh no, I'm never doing that." Like that's not what I thought I was getting into, and I'm glad they found that out for him. Just mention here of the work that had been done with Saskatchewan Association for Safe Workplace and Health, SASWH. They had created a 3-year plan, safety management system. Year 3 was last year, and now the idea is it just wraps around and we're on year 1. So working through that with our OHC agendas. We've got the performance management program we've been talking about. That is hopefully going to be a semester 2 item that we get to. Implementation of the collective bargaining agreement. One of the items on there that hasn't been high profile, but there was a change in the language as far as the administrator allowance. And in the past, it's the exclusion of custodians and facilities. They were not included in the admin allowance. Now that's been taken out. They can be if the work is directed and supervised. We've guided our administrators on what's your responsibility, which we have outlined as the day-to-day. Hey, this is what you need to get done. This is the schedule. They would conduct a performance review with input from the foreman. And then the foremen are still handling the the technical task, any of the information that they need to know for orientation. They still are guiding the work, but are still being overseen by the administrator. So that's a little bit of a change. So just wanted to outline that, and we continue to work through questions on, so what does this really mean? And we're working through that as a project, I would say. Accessibility planning, I think Aaron's got a presentation here. Happy to be part of a group which included Aaron and Tracy Clinic, Sandra, Jim Surratt, Jillian Costello. We had a teacher representative from Yellowgrass contributing to the project, but that's going to be rolled out in December. And again, I mentioned earlier, facilities and transportation. Just doing my best to support Jim and Jesse on that. The biggest project will continue to be, and it's come up already, staffing recruitment. Again, very appreciative of our approach last year, that you guys were willing to get a little ahead of the budget and hire some people early. If needed this year, we're hopeful we can knock on that door again and say, is this an approach we're willing to take? But January and February, I'll be attending Brandon, Regina, Saskatoon career fairs. The shift really focused, or the focus shifted last year to talking to people about internship. Hey, would you want to come down? And we ended up with more interns than we had in a number of years. We had 30 to start the year, which we had 21 the year before. So that's, we hired a large number of those. We hope to do so again. We have 4 that are done at Christmas that we've hired already. They've got a conditional contract in hand stating if there's successful completion of the internship and successfully get certified with professional AA certificate, TRB, you have a job on January 5th. So I think there's another interview here this week. We need these people. We're happy that they're willing to stick around. The other portion of that is SPTRB will certify on a temporary basis, temporary teaching permit, if you have 1 semester left. So if you've completed your practicum or completed your internship, they will, as long as you don't have school that day, they'll let you go and sub. And you can't take a contract, but we will, our subbing pool will increase here. So we've got, I'm still going to tour around. I met with all of the U of S. Kevin Hagen is actually the U of S person. He's supervisor. And he's held some of the meetings here. So I was able to talk to all of them already. And then the majority are still the University of Regina School Division, but get out and talk to all of them. Make sure they know that there are these opportunities, not only to apply for positions if done, but the temporary teaching to be a sub. Interview fair will be in March again. So we're hoping to gather a pool. That'll be posted here in December, so we'll get to that point. We're going to ask people if they have friends, because we need them. And then Callie will be putting out some social media and say yes to make sure that to catch people that time as well.
Do we have, I think I've asked this before and I'm sorry, I just don't remember. Do we have avenues to approach student teachers at Minot?
So we have 2 American interns this year,
Okay.
but it's by their preference. I think they're organized and saying, go ahead.
So we can't really go and recruit down there or?
Could recruit, but there also is an issue with certification sometimes.
Right.
And that when they come back across, they may certify them with a temporary certificate and with a conditional certificate based on them getting, and we have 1 in our system now who's had that professional B, I believe it is, who's had that conditional for a number of years and is refused to this point to go get any more training.
Oh.
So it's stuck teaching these 2 things. We tried to say to them, at some point you may have to teach something else, and if we have a choice between a redundancy for you or somebody else, this is what it is. But that's the kind of conundrum it is sometimes, depending on the program.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Nathan, and then you're just right on time. We have to
Keep it rolling.
motion to recess. Oh, let's do that, yeah, let's just, a motion to accept.
I move that the board acknowledge receipt of the human Resource Services report presented by Superintendent of Human Resources Nathan Johnson, highlighting the superintendent's areas of focus, staffing levels, employee agreements, risk management items and projects.
Thank you.
Can I stay for yours?
All those in favor?
Whatever they should.
Opposed? The motion's carried.
I think with all the hiring that Nathan and his team did, we should just say a special thank you. Yeah, for all the hard, I know you guys were working hard for the first month, so we really do that.
So I'd like to entertain a motion to recess this regular meeting and hold our annual meeting.
I will move that the board recess for the organizational meeting of the board.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call to order the organizational meeting of the board. 5. I will call for a motion for the adoption of the agenda as presented.
I'll move that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Excellent. In that case, I am going to call for nominations for chairperson of the board. This is the first call.
I'd like to nominate Audrey Trombley for the chair.
Audrey Trombley nominated. I'm going to make a second call for nominations for chairperson of the board. Third call for nominations for chairperson of the board. Hearing no more nominations, I'll ask for a motion. Nomination cease. Nobody's going to make
I'll
that.
move that the nomination cease.
Thank you. I'd like to declare Audrey Trombley claimed as the board chair for next year. We'll turn over the meeting to board chair for 2026.
Okay, thank you.
After all your work, Keith.
Well, you're gonna keep me around for a reason. That might be it.
So my first item would be to call for nomination for our vice chairperson of the board.
I would like to nominate Velda Weatherall as vice chair of the board.
Okay. Other nominations? Third call for nominations? Hearing none? Somebody move that nomination cease.
I will move that nomination cease.
Right. Call for nominations for discussion school boards association.
Have to
You
declare.
have to-
Oh, sorry. I declare that Velda Weatherall be elected as the vice chair for the Southeast Cornerstone for the upcoming year. Now, elect for nominations up for the Saskatchewan Civil Boards Association. Section board representative.
I'd like to nominate Michelle Room for the Saskatchewan Schools Athletic Association. Representative.
Is there any other nominations? Third call. Motion for nominations to cease.
I'll move that nomination cease.
Would declare Michelle DeBrun for, oh, sorry.
I wondered when you called it.
You call public section.
I call public statute. What are you doing to me?
I missed number 1 on 1 week. Yeah.
It's not big, it is.
High school athletics.
High school athletics.
Yeah.
I know, but
Oh,
was that before? Let me see. My screen just keeps going whack.
Just go select-
High, yeah, that was for the high school. I said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did say high school.
Yeah.
I think it's,
Thank
it's,
you. So Michelle is elected as the
think
high
perhaps as
school representative, but do we have an alternate? Do we usually have an alternate?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we need an alternate just in case.
That's been Kevin before.
I think probably as a point of order, it might not be a bad thing to go back to just redo the high school athletics piece. Ask for a nomination for that and ask for a nomination for a alternate as well. Just so that it's clear in our minutes that we'll
Okay.
go back to that.
Let's go back and do the same motion. I'm sorry. My screen's been jumping all over for me today. It's just kind of bad. I'd be glad we get rid of this deadly trust. So the,
I'm not gonna be, okay.
so where were we?
So a call for
Number
nominations
5,
for.
okay, I nominate Michelle Brown. Do I say that right? For the Saskatchewan High School Athletics Association representative.
Thank you.
And Megan.
Or do you want to do them in two separate motions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, then second call for nominations for the Saskatchewan High School Athletics Association annual general meeting. Is there any other nominations?
I'll move nomination cease.
You. Michelle is declared elected for the Saskatchewan High School Athletics Association annual general meeting, and congratulations. So now we would call for nominations for an alternate for the athletics.
I'd like to nominate Megan.
Thank you. Second call for nominations for an alternate. Third call for nominations for an alternate. Hearing none, do I have a motion for nominations to see?
All nomination cease.
Congratulations, Megan, you're elected to Saskatchewan High School Athletics Association Annual General Meeting. That's an alternate. Thank you. Now we'll do this again. Call for nominations for the Saskatchewan School Boards Association Public Section Board Representative.
I nominate Norma Hewitt-Little.
Second call for nominations. Third final call for nominations.
I'll move nomination cease.
Mona, that nomination cease. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Now, we have appointments then. Should we just read through them? The audit committee appointments, the board, Jim Henderson, Kevin Keating, Michelle Bruin, the audit committee along with the board chair as ex officio voting member.
Says motion. Do you need a motion for that?
No. Oh, do we,
Yes.
we just do them in motion.
So I'll
Yeah.
also move.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Board budget manager appointment that the board appointed Audrey Tremblay and Norma Hewitt-Windrum as the board budget managers and group that both have signing authority.
That's a
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Item number 9, the ad hoc committee to the Estevan Facilities Board representation, that the board appoint Kevin Keating and Craig McDonald as the board's representative on the school division's ad hoc committee, Estevan Facilities, along with the board chair as ex officio voting member.
I so move.
All those in favor? Opposed? She's carried. 10, on the motion that the board appoint Tammy Scott, Velda, Weatherall, Devona Putland, and as a board representatives on the school division's ad hoc committee, Reed Carlisle Facilities, along with the board chair as a voting member.
I so move.
Michelle, is that you? Michelle, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Number 11. Motion that the board appoint Devona Putland, Velda Weatherall, and Audrey Tremblay as a committee members for the First Nations board representation.
Also move.
Thanks, Tammy. The motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Governance and HR Resource Committee, motion that the board appoint Tammy Scott, Medici, Devona Putland, Craig McDonald to the Governance and HR Committee, along with the board chair as ex officio voting member.
Also,
Thank you, Melda. Heard the motion. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Do we need to do a change to the terms of reference for that committee? Add a member? Member Sean?
We changed the terms of reference last year.
Last year already? Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. And then the bargaining committee, that the board approve the appointment of the board chair or vice chair to attend the bargaining meetings with observer status only.
Also move.
Thanks, Norma. All those in favor? Opposed? She's carried. Next, the runs of signing authority. And the motion's there, so.
Board evaluation.
Board evaluation.
I missed another one. Sorry.
Not like.
I don't know how you did that, Carolyn.
I move that the board appoint Norma Hendrick, Hewitt Lendrum to compile and present summaries of 2026 board evaluations to the board. Sorry, Norma.
Letty did it.
And he's totally lost my piece.
Oh, Letty go.
It's not jumping.
How did you get?
That's your new nickname, Letty.
No. I just tell people I don't let Ralph use mine.
There, it's not.
No, you got it.
Yep. Okay, sorry. All right.
Well, I made the motion 14.1, we just need to call for.
Yeah. I'm just getting there with. So you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. So the signing authority one is also there.
I'll move that the signing authorities for business other than a contract, one of the chairperson, Audrey Tremblay, vice chairperson, Velda Weatherall, or director of education, Keith Keating, with one of the superintendent of division services, Shelley Todd, manager of finance and payroll, Marilyn Yorku, or assistant manager of finance and payroll, Janet Lee. And for employment contracts other than the director of education, signing authorities be the director of education, Keith Keating, with one of the superintendent of human resources, Nathan Johnson, or the manager of human resources, Connie Barnett.
Thank you, Tammy. Motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Next is the regular board meeting. Dates are all there listed, and there's the one anomaly in June 22nd that we talked about earlier today. So other than that, it's just into our regular schedule. So do I have a mover?
I'll move that the board hold public meetings in the division office boardroom in Wayland, commencing at 1 p.m. on the following dates: December 17th, 25, January 21, 2026, February 11th, 26, March 24th, 26, April 15th, 26, May 20th, 26, June 22nd of 26, September 16th, 26, October 14th, 26, and November 26th of 2026.
Well, trying to do that. Okay. Heard the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Okay, additional meeting board. That the board hold their organization meeting at Division Office on November 26, 2026 at 1:30 p.m. in conjunction with the November 2026 regular board meeting.
So
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Board strategic planning meeting, so we don't need a motion for that, but the dates for our information, that those when their other meetings will be held. Then board indemnity rates, number 17. We have a motion for that. Who wants to read that long motion?
I move that the indemnities remain the same as last year and I read the entire table
I don't think you need to.
as presented here. Can I say that?
Yep.
As presented in the table. For actual time on school board duties, the time spent over the hour round to next hour, and the Board of Education members be paid 1 per diem per month in recognition of meeting preparation time, and that the chairperson or acting chairperson of the Board of Education be paid an additional per diem per month in recognition of additional duties required of the board chair.
Heard the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Number 18, a motion there. Someone want to move that?
I'll move that the monthly allowance for trustees to cover the cost of the benefit plan remain at $200.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And the other one to open.
I will move that effective December 1st, 2025, the board sets the following compensation and allowance rates. Mileage set monthly according to the following formula for use of personal vehicles on school division business. 43 cents per kilometer with the gas pump price up to $1 per liter, plus 1 cent per kilometer for each 5 cents per liter that the pump price is above $1 per liter, with the per kilometer rate to be recalculated on the first day of each month for that month, using the waiver and co-op gas pump prices at that date. Rates calculated and paid according to the formula shall be limited by CRA regulations for non-taxable limits of mileage rates. And individual meal $16 for breakfast, $23 for lunch, and $31 for supper in accordance with provincial meal rates. Lodging at actual rates for hotel accommodations and $30 per night for accommodation at a private residence. No board member shall be required to leave home prior to 6:30 a.m. to attend a school board function. Where travel time requires accommodation, it will be provided as set out above. If a board member does not have to leave home prior to 6:30 a.m. to attend a school board function, but chooses to travel the night prior, the accommodation will be provided. However, the indemnity will only be paid from the start time of the meeting. If a board member chooses not to travel home after the meeting, accommodation will be provided. However, travel time home the following day.
Go. Thank you. The motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay. And that leaves number 20.
I move that the meeting be adjourned.
All those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Yes.
Our regular public meeting.
Yeah.
Minute to get back over there.
So we'll say at 1:50. Our meeting resumed at 1:50.
150 exactly, yes.
Okay. Just so in case one that's traveling from Estevan has noticed this, as my deal's the cheapest place you can buy gas.
I've noticed that.
It's $100.16. Oh. In your vehicle and Estevan, I mean, on the item, coming or going, they're always at least 5 cents cheaper. Okay, we'll just have to go back to our regular meeting. We were to do the accessibility plan, but I'm skipping back to it.
It's the accessibility.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get back to that. Trying to get back to my regular meetings. This is the wrong one. Shit. I just don't know, this is easier to say. Then there we go. How's that? Right here. So it's Aaron.
All right, thank you very much. I've got a few PowerPoint slides here, just going to go through quickly in regards to our accessibility plan. The plan will be posted on our website towards the end of next week as far as within the regulation requirements there. Had a great team working together on this piece. Nathan Johnson, Jim Serrata, Rebecca Bowerin, teacher from Yellowgrass, Cassandra Lawrence, myself and Tracy Killenek worked together on developing the plan. We used some of the resources provided to us from the SSBA as far as some questions to help build our survey, and we tackled the project without really knowing how to do one of these before. So we waited for the government to give us an example of theirs, and they suggested that they would have a template for us to be able to use and follow. So we kind of built our pieces around that. So that's posted there for you, and like I said, it'll be on the website shortly. I just kind of condensed a little PowerPoint here into some highlights for you. One of the pieces that was surprising to some folks is when we're looking at the accessibility plan, it's more than just physical accessibility towards buildings. It's attitudinal and visual, and there's different components to it as well. And that was kind of one of the first things that people noticed when they're doing the survey, that yes, it indeed asks about accessible parking spaces, but then it also asks about visibility of signage, et cetera. So that was some of the pieces that we got into as an awareness. So we had 280 different participants, including family, staff, community members, using multiple ways to access the survey completed. Broadly, it includes physical, attitudinal communication aspects based on participant feedback. So then we took that data and looked at different areas that we could maybe improve, and things that were identified. People had snow removal, signage, digital platform training to enhance accessibility. Also helped us to shape some of our responsibilities and our strategies to meet some of these real accessibility needs effectively through that survey. We've always done a really good job, I think, as Southeast Cornerstone of putting in different specific pieces when needed for students. With the accessibility project, the scope then expands to parents, community members, et cetera, and having our spaces accessible and our literature accessible and our websites accessible for everyone, not just from a student focus. So I know you can probably think, Devona and Velda, remember back when you guys were in schools when there was a specific student need, right? We did what we needed to do to do that. Now it's going beyond that, and if there's people in the community that want to attend some of our programming at the buildings, we have to aim to make those accessible to folks as well. So it's expanding that scope a little bit.
Interesting too. If you look at the actual plan itself, you'll see all sorts of color and all sorts of things. But this is different. It was interesting that
this is different. Doing some work around what makes a presentation accessible. This is an example where we've got large font. I need 32 or larger font in your PowerPoints. Not a lot of color, and contrast works best for people with visual difficulties. So not only is this PowerPoint about accessibility, it's an accessible PowerPoint. So
also a title on every page and able to be read through a reader, and yeah,
lots of different pieces there. So things that we've done so far across the system over the number of years is installing ramps and lifts and change tables, improve access where needed. We've got accessible swings that allow wheelchair users to play alongside peers. Examples of Legacy Park, Brokenville, and we actually have a picture of our board chair using the one in Brokenville during convention. It's in our plan, Audrey. Thank you for releasing your photo there. Washroom renovations, of course, and have become a priority in schools to ensure safe and accessible facilities for students. And then, of course, sensory supports. And all of our classrooms have sensory rooms. And it increased my understanding that that was an accessibility piece, not just a student sensory and regulation piece as well. It fits both scopes of that work. So communication accessibility tools are also things that we've put up, and we have examples of those. There's pictures of those in the plan where some of our students that have communication challenges can use the picture boards to communicate. Website accessibility enhancements. As you know, Cassandra was our communications officer for a number of months, filling in for Matt Lee, and quickly realized that there's settings in our SharePoint and in our web pages that will actually ensure that they're accessible and it will read text and those sorts of things. So just having the understanding of when we're building those pieces to make sure that they are accessible to all. And that's kind of an understanding by design piece that's common language in teaching and when you're planning things for teaching, but it's kind of taking that and making it from an accessibility lens as well. And then, of course, attitudinal accessibility campaigns, and that's you know, the fact that it's more than just physically accessible, where it gets into inclusion, mental health, and diversity as well. So goals and actions for 25 to 28, which is the length of the current version of the plan. We're going to review facilities throughout and identify improvement areas that will enhance inclusivity. And then that will, of course, have budget implications and planning implications and PMR implications, so that the team is going to continue to work together. Make sure we have clear signage for ramps and accessible washrooms in existing spaces. There's example, Estevan Comp has accessible facilities, but the signage is not necessarily jumping up and down for people to be able to see or even know where they are. And sometimes you need to have a staff member present in order to operate some of those things. So as we're doing through this work, we're going to have to change some operating procedures there to make it more inclusive for folks. And future upgrades, of course, classroom adaptations, prioritize accessibility to new construction projects. And Jim has mentioned that is in the work for the Carlisle School, some of those pieces being built in right from ground zero from the start. Our second goal is looking at website compatibility, making sure that those are reviewed and improved so they can support screen readers, etc. Another part that I never really thought of very much was having our videos and having closed captioning included in the videos. That was just not something that really crossed our mind to have that on there for all of our different pieces we have on our website. So that would be pieces that we strive towards doing as well. Different help documents for EDSB and some of our other parent resources that we have available, making sure that those are accessible, and as well as creating a resource bank that will house accessibility materials for easy access and navigation for teachers and students across the system. So goal 3 is just increasing awareness and understanding, and the actual survey itself was the first step towards that. And having people reflect and go through the survey obviously increase their awareness of the scope of accessibility. So we're going to review the plans annually and ensure staff remain aware of the evolving challenges and solutions, as well as including professional development initiatives and training on universal design and impressive education near diversity to support inclusion as well. And then it's a shared responsibility culture, fostering understanding of what's culture where accessibility is recognized as a collective responsibility within the system. It's important work that we have to do, and it's a shared ownership of us doing that work. And I appreciate the board's support in moving these pieces forward. One of the, just kind of outlining goal 4 is just having an examination of our policies and procedures existing within our APs and our standards that we have, and making sure that we are trying to establish a level of accessibility across all of our buildings. For example, I believe all of our buildings are accessible by wheelchair, but not all of them have a wheelchair accessible washroom once you're in the building. So that's something, of course, it's going to be first priority. So not only are people able to get there, but they can use the facilities if they are there. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at right off the bat as well. Reviewing policies, procedures, and APs, making sure that accessibility is prioritized, is having that lens as we look at different pieces, and making sure that we're aligning with standards. And Jim mentions often code, and Audrey had a conversation earlier that she's experienced some of our accessible places have only a button on one side of the door. Well, it'd be very nice to have them on both sides of the door, but code says you only need to have them on one side, which is kind of amazing. And I just keep reminding that code is the base standard and we can always be above code. I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to use the new washrooms they've set up in the Regina Airport or in the Fat Burger, actually, in Regina. The restaurant has a handy accessible washroom in which the button is outside on the door for everyone. The door doesn't open by handle. You have to use the button. Once you're inside, you push another button that locks the door. Use the facilities to push the button again. It kind of lets you out. That's the future of what accessibility washrooms look like. And they're quite spacious inside. So just if you're looking to check out some new technology, there's a couple different ones. Just make sure if you're using the one inside, you have to push the button to lock the door, because if you don't, the person on the other side that pushes the button to open the door will open. So just to let you know. I had an angry lady, but thankfully everyone was all done. Everyone was all done before I pushed the button. So.
I have to say, like, there is such, when they use the excuse that they can't put an extra bar in there because it doesn't match code, that's not true. You can go more than code, right?
Exactly.
So I've really noticed it in the last couple of years that in schools, there's many schools that don't have a wide enough, so it shouldn't be too expensive to just take out one of those, like one less stall.
One stall, yeah.
And then fix up the floor, I guess.
Exactly.
But-
That's the exact work Jim and his team are going to be doing.
And that's, not just a bar on the outside by the toilet, but one behind it too, because most of them don't, when you drive in, you're on the wrong side from the bar. You can't get a hold of the bar unless you can get on the toilet without that, and that's not good. So, yeah. So,
Most of them have battery backup, I believe.
yeah.
I did the do test.
Yes,
For the
but you
deal.
might be
I hope
locked
so.
in there forever.
How about the battery lasts? I don't know.
Yes.
And then just making sure we have some feedback channels put in place. So we've got email, phone, opportunities for in-person calls on the actual report itself, in addition to our website. And we're also going to review the plan every 3 years at a minimum. And of course, if things change or legislations change or needs change, we'll review on a more frequent basis. And just making sure that feedback is taken into consideration and visible in the plan. And when you actually look at the plan, you can see some of the pieces that people have suggested. And you can see that these goals and the actions that we have are to address that feedback we have from the people who participate in the survey.
Yeah.
So
Do
this,
you know, or have you heard anything about funding at all? If this, I know they were talking about the convention, are they going to fund some of this stuff? I think probably not, but hopefully they can. Hopefully we don't have really expensive things to do. Some of them won't be very expensive at all, like putting up signs, it's pretty simple, but yeah, there will be some costs, and we'll have to make sure we can provide something in the budgets so that this can happen.
Yeah, exactly. As far as I know, there's been no funding earmarked provincially to help us do this.
Uh,
I didn't really have a question with that statement because I've maintenance long enough so I can see this being millions of dollars to get us where we need, not like little bits. You start adding like extra doorways, lifts, ramps, changing stalls. I can tell you what a stall costs you in the bathroom. Like, it's just going to be like huge dollar wise. Anybody that thinks different is.
So that's why we need to have a plan to prioritize what pieces we have. Have Jim earmark some pieces in PMR, which, in a conversation with him yesterday, his new budget he's going to be working on is actually going to have like an accessibility component within that PMR. Because if we don't earmark the dollars, we know that it'll be really hard to find them as the year goes on, right? So that's
Just one of them set of doors, push a button for your door to open. I mean, that 10 grand doesn't go anywhere.
No, they're $2,900 for the one for each door. Yeah, $2,900. But so many of them have one door but you get into a foyer and there's no other.
On the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
There was a resolution at this meeting, was there not?
Yes.
Here?
Yeah.
Did it go through?
Around what's right?
Advocating for funding to
Yeah.
accompany.
Okay,
It doesn't
excellent.
mean funding, it just means to
No,
advocate.
advocate for, but at least they're doing that every year.
It's conversation.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I just want to thank my team for all the work that they've done to prepare this. The report's there for you. Like I said, it'll be up on the website prior to December 3rd to meet that target. And thank you for your support in allowing some staff to be assigned to that and do that good work. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been a long time overlooked.
We need a motion.
Nope, there's no motion required. That was just
I know.
See you.
for your information.
Yeah.
See you.
There's a fog advisory for most of the way to Saskatoon today right now. So
Oh,
excited.
is it 8.1 is our number?
Oh, correct.
We will, the directors, opportunity to look at it. As long as the hiring one was.
It's not when they get shorter, not longer.
We have a motion to adopt the personnel report.
Although the director's personnel is what we approved and presented.
Michelle? Is there any discussion? Questions about it? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried.
Oh, you'll be good.
Now we have Shelley. Shelley, the auditor's report. Thank you.
Okay, so the 2024-2025 fiscal year resulted in revenues of 119.5 million and expenses of 122.5 million for a net deficit of 3 million. So that is lower than the budgeted surplus of 4.2 million. And as you can see, when we look at the variance from budget to actual, most of that is in the revenue category at 6.8 million or 5% lower than budget. So we'll just first drill down into that revenue piece of the financial statement. We see that the grant revenue was 8.7% or 8.7 million or 7% lower than budget. And when we drill down a little further than that, we see the biggest item there on the bottom under capital grants. We had budgeted 10 million for capital grant for the Carlisle Elementary School, and actual was 0. And that's because the project is still pending construction tender approval by the ministry. There's some smaller items up top. Our operating grant was $500,000 higher than budget due to additional funds received for the teacher collective bargaining agreement. And we also received 761,000 more for PMR funding. So that's that preventative maintenance and renewal restricted funding that must be used for the maintenance of our buildings. Some other variances in the revenue category was under the tuition and related fees. They were 319,000 or 26% higher than budget due to a higher number of students and a higher tuition rate. School generated funds were 338,000 or 12% higher than budget due to higher than expected activity at the school level. External services were 170,000 or 12% higher than budget due to an increase in cafeteria sales, as well as higher than budgeted grants for the Estevan Early Years Family Resource Center and the Driver's Education Program. And the last area and under revenue was just the other revenue, 950,000 or 665% higher than budget. 477,000 of that was a result of some insurance reimbursements and an insurance refund that we were unaware of at the time of budget. Reimbursements for teacher secondments and for Microsoft were also higher than budget. So going back to that first slide, we see expenses very close to budget, 377,000.
Pretty good.
Yeah, in total, 0.3. Now, there's some variances within that. Some were higher, some were lower. So I'm just going to highlight those for you. But yeah, no, in total, pretty darn close, I'd say. Governance expenses were 124,000 or 25% under budget. Expenses for school community councils are budgeted here. However, their actual costs have been relocated to instruction. So Marilyn and I have talked about, and then maybe next year we need to move that budget to the instruction line to where the actual costs are going to end up at the end of the year. They were also lower than budgeted costs for board elections, and board member PD as a national conference was moved from in-person to online due to the wildfires in Manitoba.
Why would the costs of the SEC be in instruction?
For years and years and years, we used to budget and code expenses to governance. And then a couple of years ago, the ministry decided they didn't want us to put those costs there anymore. They thought they were more appropriate for the instruction category. I argued with them and I lost.
Very intuitive.
The only connection you could make is that if the SECs are supposed to be supporting.
Yeah,
the
it's learning
learning
student
plan,
learning plan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Maybe, but it makes more sense on our government.
We're supposed to be supporting the learning plan too.
Yes.
There is still an account under governance if you give a grant to your SCC, which we don't do. We just give them a budget within our budget to spend some of our funds, right? So I don't know which school divisions do that. I'm assuming some of maybe the bigger cities do that, and that's maybe why that argument was won. But so that's the only thing you're allowed to put under governance if you're.
Where does that 2,000 that we give you for school go under?
So we budget under governance, but then their actual costs would be under instruction, depending on what they spend it on, whether it's meals or mileage, or sometimes they purchase some equipment, depending on what the SCC spends it on. So it's a bunch of different accounts. It's no longer just one account, depending on what they're buying.
Presenters.
Depending on what they're spending, sometimes presenters, yeah. The other item that was different than budget when it comes to expenses that was significant was plant operation and maintenance, 866,000, 5% higher than budget. More facility projects were undertaken due to the higher PMR grant that we saw when we looked at revenue, along with some extra insurance claim costs due to a hailstorm and event. So again, we saw that in revenue as well. Under other, we had higher revenue under insurance reimbursements. So of course, those costs are higher in the plant category as well. And then we have transportation, 754,000 under budget, or 5%, 6% under budget. Bus driver salaries were lower than budget as some routes were not filled due to lack of drivers. They were also lower than budgeted expenses for fuel, equipment leases, bus licensing, and insurance. So there's a few categories that came in under budget in that line item under expenses.
I like your little plug in there, Shelley.
I tried. So what else did we purchase last year? So we purchased some tangible capital asset additions of 4.6 million. We spent 1.34 million for 8 new school buses, 97,000 for 2 division fleet vehicles, 437,000 for furniture and equipment, which included 159,000 for transportation equipment, 127,000 for phone systems at Arcola and Stoughton schools, 82,000 for school-based furniture and equipment, and 69,000 for caretaking and facilities equipment. So a piece of equipment that's over $1,000 is considered capital and gets capitalized. We also spent 864,000 on computer hardware and AV equipment that met that $1,000 threshold. 660,000 was spent for a relocatable classroom addition at Assiniboia Park Elementary School in Weyburn. And then for that new school in Carlisle, we spent 11,000 for land and 1.23 million towards the design. So that's sitting under our assets under construction, that 1.23 billion. Okay, so where did we end up? The bottom line that this is the most common question that I receive is, what does our surplus look like? So we ended the year with an accumulated surplus of 146.8 million, which you see in that bottom kind of gray-brown color there. And it's made up of three different categories. 122.6 million is invested in those tangible capital assets. 21.4 million is in designated assets. And within that designated asset category, if you look at the schedule left, you see there's two types of designated assets. One is external, so 6.9 million is external. So those are restricted sources of funds that are restricted by someone other than ourselves, someone other than the board. Most of it would be ministry funding. And then internal, so internally restricted by the board is 14.5 million. So that adds up to that 21.4. And then there's a 3.9 million in unrestricted surplus. So those three items add up to the 146.8 million. So what does that mean that's for the board in terms of available surplus? So we have, sorry, I lost my spot here. That internally restricted of 14.5 million and that unrestricted of 3.9. So that's available at the board's discretion. That did see a slight increase from last year of $266,848. So one category went down a little. That internally restricted went down by $68,671. The unrestricted went up by $335,519 to get that 266. So you'll see in the graph where we had kind of been consistently going down, down, down. We've actually leveled off and went up just a little bit. So it was a pretty good year in terms of that.
If you'll notice, that is the closest we have ever been between our expenses and what on $110 million budget to be within $166,000. It's amazing that it was that close. Like that's the closest we've been in a long time, whether above or below that. Not to the budget, but to the actual deficit, and we always deficit budget, hoping to be close to the actual number. That's wow. When Shelley saw that, she was pretty excited. It was like, holy throw, is that the closest I've ever seen it to zero?
Mm-hmm. And then lastly, those statements are prepared in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards for other government organizations as established by the Public Sector Accounting Board, otherwise referred to as PSAB. The statements have been audited by an external auditor and have been found to present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the division as of August 31st, 2025. Any other questions?
Excellent. All present.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you.
You need a motion for that report.
Yeah, I'm just giving there 8.2.11, a motion to accept the.
Right. I'll make that motion.
Kevin?
That pursuant to the recommendation received from Southeast Commercial and Public School Division Audit Committee, board approved the auditor's report and audited financial statements for the period ending August 31st, 2025, pending possible format revisions for final review by the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance.
Thank you, Kevin. That was an excellent final end of the year. I'm not close to the budget. So, and kind of refreshing to know that we got a little bit of money that was doing that, and that's all due to the, the collective bargaining, put more money in. I'm just really worried about the budget for this year. They're not just going to get about $47 million somewhere else because of the commitment that they've made.
You need to approve that motion.
Yeah, I'm just speaking to it, that's all. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? The motion's carried. Then the next one's 8.2.2, and that's the long annual report.
Long annual
Long.
report. So I'll try to abbreviate portions of it. I'll try to get through some of the more important pieces, particularly around the data. It's not approved yet. It will be approved once it goes to government. This is just for you, so you can approve it, so we can forward it off to government, so they may take a look at it and approve our annual report. Thank you to Aaron and all his team for all of their work on putting these pieces together, and Shelley, I know the pieces around the budget and those pieces as well in there. We won't go a lot around the budget. That's the end here. We just had a large report on the audited financial statements, so I don't think it makes sense to redo those. This is around the 24-25 school year. It talks about the Board of Education, talks about our school community council, which is page 5. We have 35 schools. You give $2,007 per school. Just had a conversation about how that gets coded within the budget. We have a lot of very, very big successes within our school community councils this year. Everything from the one school, one book to bringing in presentations, to snack programs, to talent shows, to lots of family connection pieces within there. Some of the key challenges, which are on page 6, it includes continually recruitment of new members, especially in specific communities. And I think we've talked about that a little bit. The larger high schools especially don't have a harder time getting new members than some of the smaller places do sometimes. Lots of issues around the number of people that could be coming out to volunteer and help. Some lack of understanding around the clarity of the role for those who aren't on the SEC. And some are concerned about approaching the same businesses in their communities all the time for help over and over again. So some of those things we looked at in terms of the presentations we're doing with their SECs for next year. I know that the area superintendents gather feedback, but those may be some of the pieces that they look at for next year. Again, you're aware who we are. Just a little context for you there, a map of. And again, the size of Vancouver Island, which is a fairly large area to cover. It's a fairly large school division geographically. So, and as much as there are many differences, we're very much a rural school division. We have several large towns like the Estevans, the Weyburn's, the Moosemans of the world. And then we have some very small places like our Manners, Merryfields, as well as penguins. So it's quite and three First Nations reserves: pheasant, rump, ocean man, and white bear exist within those boundaries. Of course, we have the pieces around our guiding principles, our mission statement, our vision statement. And I know the vision statement is something we go back to on a regular basis as a board and as an SLT and as an educational support team group around success and achievement for every student in every school. Demographics. Very similar last year. Our enrollment dropped a little bit last year. It's gone up again a little bit this year, but it's dropped 85 students last year. You'll see a slow trend down. We've seen a little bit of a trend up again here last year. And typically we'll see larger numbers when the economy is a little better than when it's a little worse. When our oil is doing better than when it's doing worse, we seem to have better numbers there. Last year, we discontinued the French immersion program at Pleasantdale and Estevan just due to lack of interest, and we continue to offer that one in Weyburn. If you look down to page 11, if you go to page 11 of the chart, again, you'll see the numbers that Nathan mentioned earlier from last year. These are last year's numbers, so 460 teachers, of which 58 are principals or vice principals. Other educational staff was 318.3 last year. Administrative staff last year, that's all of the people who support the schools, is about 32.8. Plant operations and maintenance was 80. Transportation, 159. Leads members was 6 last year. And total full-time equivalent staff, 1,114.5 last year. Next, we get into the provincial education plan and the priorities and the priority actions, which I know you've seen a number of times, which is page 13. And that's the very top of page 13. You'll see 3-4 different colors there, right there. You got learning and assessment, Indigenous education, mental health and well-being, and student transitions. And, you know, a number of times a year we go through the wall walks, and those are the priority areas that guide us in terms of the work that we're doing there. There are provincial level targets. There were some provincial level targets from last year. Those are still being refined. They haven't specifically stated a goal number, but they all are around improved outcomes. So improving annually, improved outcomes, increase year over year, increase year over year, and increase year over year. Those are the goals that they've set. We'll go down to our specific pieces around, if we'll go please, Shelley, to page 15. We'll look at percentage of attendance in school. I'll talk to this one very briefly. So if you look at our percentage of attendance in school, ours are on the left, the provincial numbers are on the right. And these are the students who attend 80 and 90%. The blue are all students and the green are FNMI. The left is all grades and the right graphs are grades 10 to 12. So you're aware of that as you're looking at that. So our attendance has shown improvement since 2021-22 when data identified 78% of all students attended at least 80%. 23-24, the rate was 82, up from 78 in the previous year. While in 24-25, our rate decreased a little bit to 81% for all students. We note that the 81% attendance rate achieved in 24-25 for all students exceeds the provincial attendance rate of 78. Was mirrored in the results for FNMI students in the division. And data for FNMI students is also on par with provincial average, which was 62. Our rate of SECPSD students attending 90% or greater was 59% for all students, which is on par with provincial average of 59. For FNMI, it was 41, which is higher than the provincial average of 35. Again, our grade 10 to 12 students have also shown those improvements since 21-22, when 71% attended at least 80%. 23-24, it was 75, while 24-25, the rate decreased a little bit to 73, still above the provincial average of 70%. They were mirrored with the results in the FNMI students in the division. 48% in 21-22, 48% in 23-24, and 50 in 23-24, 47 in 24-25. FNMI student data for attending at least 80% is again above the provincial average of 41. Grade 10 to 12 students attending 80%, 90% or greater was 48 for all students, which was on par with the provincial average of 48. 90% for FNMI students was 24, which was lower than the provincial average of 26. So our FNMI students are attending more at the 80% level, but this is one level at the provincial that were lower than the provincial averages. Those FNMI students were attending 90% or more, which is something we're looking at. We experienced a slight decrease in attendance compared to the last 3 years. Disparity between FNMI and non-FNMI students is still a concern for us. We use the attendance monitoring checklist to track in the system and monitor attendance interventions in place for students with the goal of raising those rates for all students. If we go to the next one, it's on graduation rates. And I know you've seen this one before, so I'm not going to dig quite as deeply into this as I did the other one. If you go down a little bit, Shelley, just so we can see the numbers. These are our 3-year graduation rates year over year. Far left of that graph being 14-15, the far right of that graph being this last year. We've seen a slight drop in our 3-year graduation rates from last year, still above where we would have been in 14-15 and still above the provincial average. Our non-FNMI students are at the exact same level as the provincial average. However, all of our students, we have an 87% graduation rate as opposed to a 79% graduation rate across the province. That's highly attributable to our FNMI students doing better than they are in much of the rest of the province. That keeps our graduation rates, well, 8% higher at the 3-year graduation rate than the rest of the province. And we'll go down and we'll look at the next one, which is on page 19. And on page 19, you'll see the 5-year graduation rates. And again, this one actually, we are the same level as last year for our non-FNMI students, but we fallen slightly behind our non-FNMI students by 1% over 5 years, which says the province is, as a province, taking 5 years to get them through, but of the non-FNMI, they're getting 1% more than we are through. Overall, we're at a 91% 5-year graduation rate, which is where we were last year, as opposed to the province has an 87% 5-year graduation rate. 71% of our FNMI as opposed to 67% in the province over those 5 years. When I look at those two graphs together, what that says to me is we're doing a good job getting them through on the 5-year. We're slightly above the province, but we're doing a really good job at making sure we're getting all of the students, as many as possible, through on that 3-year graduation rate plan, so that they're keeping those kids on time for graduation, which is the most important thing is they all graduate. To me, the second most important thing is that we make sure the kids are being successful in those 3 years that they need to be. So, and then the next one is, the next graph we're looking at is percentage attaining 8 or more credits in grades 10 to 12, province and SECPSD. Again, it's not surprising the level where we are above the province again this year. We've seen a slight increase in that from 23 to 24. Seen again a slight increase from 14, 15 as well. Not surprising that if we've got a higher level of graduation rate, we've also got a higher level of students getting 8 or more credits in grade 10 to 12, because that's that 24 that they need to graduate. You would have remembered we've looked at that on the wall as well, kind of in different ways in terms of the 8 credits, but also in terms of the required credits. Because if you get 8, you might not get the required credits as well. That's good news. If we're looking at 10 to 12s that are getting 8 credits, it means that we're on track to meet our goal of making sure they graduate within the 3 years. And I pipe in on anything here, Nathan, as we're going through it. Aaron, if you've got anything that you want to pipe in as we go through here, I know.
See if Nathan's stuck in here.
Sorry, Aaron. Nathan, Aaron, pipe in on anything as we're going through here. I know you've done a lot of work on it, and you know the data as well. So if there's things you're thinking, oh, I should say that too,
Will do.
Feel free to pipe in.
You've been doing a great job, Mr. Keating.
The next one is grade 9 students adjusted cohort achieving 8 or more credits the following school year. So this is written weirdly, but what it is those students who are in grade 9 now getting into credits in grade 10 of the next year. Because what actually happens is if those grade 9s don't go to grade 10 and get at least 2 credits, they don't start counting them on the credit 8 or more credit attainment list. So if you lose kids in grade 9, they're not counting in your credit attainment list in that next year. This is a way of going back to grade 9, taking those kids and say, how many of those get 8 or more credits the next year? So it's worded weirdly, but that's why they've done it in that particular way.
Yeah, it's an intervention to make sure we're not losing a bunch of kids
In grade
transition
9.
9 and starting 10.
Yeah, exactly. So
So how is that though? Like, is that rare that we lose them in that grade 9, or is that more common than we'd like to see?
we don't lose a lot in our school division from grade 9 to grade 10, but we have typically smaller schools and we know who the kids are, and in larger schools, especially inner city schools, I think this would be a more prevalent issue. Or kids who are transitioning a lot that are on reserve, off reserve, they may lose track of them. And then I think it's a more prevalent issue perhaps in a lot of other places. Not that it never happens here, but it's more of a rarity than, I don't know, Aaron.
Yeah, and all of our facilities, our 9s and 10s are in the same buildings. There's no transition as far as actual location for that. I think that helps out. Whereas in some of the larger cities, they've got pure high schools that are 10 through 12, and there's a transition there between 9 and 10 in there.
And I would
They
see, and
might not show up, so but you can see them here, that how many are not showing up, kind of thing, right?
And if you look at that graph there, it will indicate to you that it's not really a huge issue for us in that the blue line, the dark blue line is our overall. So we have 91.3% of our grade 9s from the year before getting those 8 credits in grade 10. If you look at the provincial average though, that's that dotted blue line underneath. There's a fair number of grade 9s in the province who aren't getting those 8 credits the next year. And it becomes even more stark when you look at our look at the FNMI population, ours has a bit of a dip that comes back up and then has been steadily climbing. So 68.6% of our FNMI students who were in grade 9, the year before. Last year, when they were in grade 10, got that credit. You're right. You're looking at that. That's our number of 68.6%. And when you look at that, the number across the province, that number is about 45% for FNMI students that are, and you'll notice that gap is larger between what our non-FNMI, all of our students are getting in the province, is smaller than the gap between our FNMI students and where the province is at. So long story short, is that a big issue for us? It isn't a huge issue for us, but you can see by the data that is an issue across the province. So an interesting way for them to have captured that and looked at that, because it does identify if we're losing kids from like grade 9 to grade 10 level, because you only actually track those kids you still have in terms of graduation rates. So if you lost them there, then you don't actually report them on your 3 or 5 year, which makes, again, maybe that difference between us and the province a little more stark, because we're keeping these kids next year. Then we got the grade 3 reading levels, which I think we've seen before. Yeah, I've shared these with you before last year, page 24. And this is again that graph that talks about the blue line being us and the purple line being the province. We've seen that drop again this from last year to this year. I think we were at the 81.3%. We didn't realize that 2 years ago we were actually with the second highest division in the province, behind one very small division, which wouldn't be surprised, was that one very small, very exclusive division that maybe gets to select their kids. So we were doing very well last year. Had a drop this last year, which we were expecting, having tracked our grade 2 kids and putting interventions into place there. Still above the provincial average, though. I'll go much more into that because I know we've talked about those reading results before. So the next one is all students have increased sense of connection and safety in schools. And the measure on this one is the percentage of students reporting a sense of connection and safety in schools through the student perceptual survey. So this is the R school data that we've gone over a number of times. We've talked about the elementary students and the middle and high school students and the difference between the two. You'll see a number of graphs there. I'm just going to read through some of the results there. So last year was the first year that we did it twice. So we did the R school data, positive sense of belonging. In 24-25, 72% of the elementary survey reported positive sense of belonging in school in the fall, 68% in the spring. That was up from the 23-24 data, which was 69%. Middle school survey results, 61% in the fall, 59% in the spring, were lower than the elementary students, but above and slightly up from the 23-24 measure of middle school students, which was 58%. Both sets of survey results are within the provincial norm. Second set of data was the R school survey metric for students with positive relationships. 24-25, we had 83% in the fall and 84% in the spring. Said they had a positive relationship with a friend at school, higher than the 23-24 data, which was 82% at the middle high school level, 78% in the fall, 76% in the spring. We're lower than the elementary students and above. Students above and 1 percentage point higher than the 23-24 measure of 77. And again, both sets of those survey results were at and above the provincial average, fairly close within the provincial norm. The third data set from our school was the feel safe attending school data. In 24-25, 63% of the students in the fall and 60% in the spring. And the elementary survey said they felt safe attending their school, slightly above the 23-24 data, which was 59%. The middle high school survey for 24-25 result, 59% in the fall and 57% in the spring, was higher than the 23-24 measure of 57%. Both sets of survey results were within the provincial norm. So we're going to continue to use system and school level data to inform school level data walls, visibility walls, share it with school community councils to help inform engagement projects at the school level. And SECs will continue to be involved in the planning to impact the provincial education plan. Next one is the EYE results. They're a little more complicated to look at than the other results. There's the data there. So our EYE entrance results for students entering kindergarten in the fall of 2024 were lower than the EYE entrance results for 2023. They were still higher than the provincial entrance results for the fall of 24. EYE results increased from the spring of 23 to the spring of 24 from 77.9 to 81.8%, which is good. EYE entrance and exit results for FNMI children SECPSD are significantly lower than results for non-FNMI children. Our entrance results were 41.9%. Those are higher than the provincial average of 31.4. Our exit results were higher than the provincial average for FNMI children at 63.6. For the 24-25 school year, students entered kindergarten above the provincial average at 60.3 compared to 56.5. And by exit in June was above the provincial average of 81.8 as compared with 78.8. Since baseline data was collected in 14-15, our entrance scores have fluctuated with 57% in 21-22 at the lower end of the range. I know we put several strategies in place to support young children and families before kindergarten entrance. We partnered with Regional Kids First, Estevan Early Years Family Resource Center, and provincial health nurses to create touch points across early childhood, delivering just-in-time information and resources at 18, 36, and 48 months. We also measure treaty outcomes, and these are the treaty outcomes that have been measured. It's just a chart there across the grade levels at SECPSD. And one of two divisions that actually still require reporting, that require reporting on it and track that. Overall, teaching and assessing treaty outcomes remained high. Completed rates ranged from 76 to 97% of students assessed on all four outcomes. K-8 displayed the highest completion rates of 91 to 97%. 9 to 12 were lower at 76 to 89, which is higher than last year's range. Completion rates for students who transitioned from 6 to 7, 96 to 91%, and grade 8 to 9, 97 to 76, were outliers, need further supports to develop during the 25-26 school year. Not surprising that the 9 to 12s are a little bit lower than the elementary levels. At the elementary level, it's typically one teacher that's managing all of the curriculum and are teaching those outcomes within where it fits within their curriculum. At the high school level, it's typically one teacher who's being assigned to within a particular class teaching that treaty outcome. So it's a little harder to track than it is at elementary level, where they have access to those students across a wider range of subjects to fit that in.
Also, the course selection of grade 11, there isn't as many required courses for grade 11, so let's have to make sure we're getting all the 11 treaties.
So you might pick a particular class, but if a student isn't taking that particular class, then then they're not getting covered off in that. There are a variety of school division activities in support of the provincial education plan. I won't go through all of them, but those are on page 33, a list of some of the things that are being done within Connections for Learners and Families while supporting learners as they enter the progress through school, graduate through school, and after graduation, a terminal life pathway. That's on page 33. Those are all the actions that are being taken place there. On page 34, you'll see some of the activities for enriching, enhancing mental health and well-being capacity in students. There's a number of actions that were taking place through there. We'll go through all of them, but there are a number of things that were done as a school division and as schools. Then if you look at the next page, it's the actualizing the vision of expiring success, pre-K to 12 First Nations Métis education policy framework. You'll see the 5 goals of inspiring success and a number of activities that took place. I know you had a presentation from of one of those things, land-based learning, from Keegan MacArthur and some of the people involved there. Pictures of that on the bottom. improving student outcomes through effective assessment practices, guide, strength, and responsive instruction. There are some actions that were undertaken from a division staff perspective. And then on page 38, you will see progress in the 24-25 school division local priority around developing an understanding collaborative response model, transform how we respond to the needs of all learners. And you will have heard different bits and pieces of the collaborative response over the last number of years. And some of the pieces that were taken into account last year in order to meet that priority. Which then leads us to infrastructure, transportation, and a financial overview, which we talked about already. So with that, any questions about the annual report that we're looking to forward on to the ministry for approval?
Well, there's a lot of work goes into this. I'm sure the ministry will just dot the i's and cross the t's if they're missing them. And it'll be fine.
That's what we've got.
Yeah.
No questions, then I will turn it back over to Aubrey.
Want a motion on that? We have a motion for this one?
Yeah, it's-
For a, yeah.
8-2-2-1.
Yeah. To go to 2-1.
I'll make the motion that facilities cornerstone school division number 209 annual report for 24-25 be approved for submission to the ministry.
Thank you. For the motion, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed, the motion is carried.
Excellent.
The desk.
2.3.
Start working on next week.
Personnel matters. Okay, oh, there's not that. I'll entertain a motion to move into camera.
I'll move that the board move into an in-camera session pursuant to section 80, section 2 of the Education Act 1995 and section 15(1)(b) of the Local Authority Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act to discuss a personnel matter.
Thank you, Tammy.
248.
$351.
Are we back, Sean?
Yes.
We're back on.
Ready for the motion?
Yes, I will move that the board adopt the recommendation for the immediate termination of the contract for the reasons set out in the report dated November 26th, 2025, as presented by the Superintendent of Human Resources.
Thank you, Tammy. Discussion? None? All in favor? Is opposed? You? 8.3, where we are?
8.3.
Yeah, administrative procedure was information system security processes.
It's an EP. Shelley, you want to talk to us?
So we just cleaned it up a little bit, added some acronyms for some of the language that were used, and realized when we read number 6 and number 9 and number 12 that if we just added one sentence to number 6, we could probably get rid of 9 and 12. So we did that. And the rest we just identified where systems, because we do now have systems hosted in the cloud, so we identified those as well.
AP around service dogs in school as well. That's a new AP, and this is some background towards accessibility and some of the pieces around that. Work with students or staff members around service dogs. This was an AP that was, I think, full called for. So thank you to some of our staff, particularly those in the student services department who looked at research and some of the other policies out there to come up with a policy that would suit the needs of the Southeast Corners.
So this is just for our information, is an admin policy?
Yep.
No.
Nope, the motion. And the future meeting dates.
Down there. November 28th governance program.
That's me.
Oh, my last. Your last
And
class.
then I have to pick a day to rate my exam.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I gotta find 4 hours. Not sure when I'm gonna find it. but
And have a backup, a good battery in case your power goes out, because you don't want to lose it all.
Oh,
13th. I have a generator.
Oh. I made sure my battery is 17 before I started.
Meeting December 17th.
I know
Excellent.
Is there anything else?
when is Lynn?
the third, that's our starts where I thought.
In here for 10 o'clock to get some training on the new program. And then lunch, and then we'll be presenting in the afternoon.
I will officially adjourn.